What's up, guys? Welcome back to Project Unbroken. I am really excited about this episode. This is our first podcast with a guest, and that guest is Jose Verdejo, a good friend of mine. It was really nice to catch up. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I hope you guys do as well. So, without further ado, here's Jose. Jose, welcome to the show.
Hey.
Thank you for joining us. We were talking a little bit off camera before the mics were on about what you do. Do you want to give everybody a little bit of background about your job and how you got into it?
So right now I am working in corporate trusts and I am part of the global capital markets division. Before that, I was working in banking and I was a financial advisor, but being in those positions just fresh out of college just wasn't really my jam. It wasn't something that I was enjoying. Didn't make me really happy. I wasn't learning anything really. So I decided to say hey, all the stuff that I did in financial advising, bonds, the investment markets, why do companies make certain decisions when it comes to tough financial times? And of course, corporate trust was the path. And right now I'm just working on global bankruptcies. We have a team of people, great people. And right now it's just due to the times, it's just incredible how many of these people are just going under. Everything before coronavirus was nice and quiet, and now everything just took a dip. So I am seeing a lot of new stuff, and there's a lot of things that go into it that I never really learned of when I was in college.
Yeah, I can imagine this is a pretty wild time to be in finance in general. I remember I reached out to you. I guess it was like right when all this stuff started, March or April, somewhere around there. And, I was looking for somebody who knew what they were talking about with this stuff. And there's just like a lot involved. And I think now with everything that's been going on, it's probably been just a particular crazy time in finance in general. How has coronavirus impacted your job besides you making a big change, in March? How has it been since then?
Since coronavirus, it's just been intense. It's just been I have a set time schedule. Like everybody says, oh, you're doing like a 9 to 5 or something like that. There are times where I'm doing like an 8 to 6. It might be a 9 to 7, just depending on everything that we need to accomplish during the day, and especially specifically my tasks that I need to get done. And it's just been a constant grind. And before the coronavirus, I was in the office maybe for 3 weeks training, and then coronavirus hit. The person who was training me, unfortunately, she went to a different company. So it was just me, and I had to learn how to do all this stuff essentially by myself. Right now I'm training a new guy, and I just keep on telling him hey, you're really lucky that I'm helping you out here, because when I was just me by myself, I was like, okay, what do I do? What does this mean? What are they telling me? And it's just a whole different ballgame. Yeah, I have the comfort of working from my house, but that definition between your home life and your work life, it just starts to get a little bit blurry when you're working from home. But it's just intense. Yeah. I mean, I've been working a lot. There are days where I'm just completely beat, but get in my workout, do my stuff. That's a way to de-stress, and then I just keep moving forward.
Yeah. So have you found that you need to set boundaries for yourself with work? I mean, do you have to leave your desk for a certain amount of time, or how do you manage that?
There's boundaries. I tell everybody there's lunchtime, and for me, lunchtime is sacred. All right. If I'm having my lunch, don't bother me. I'll get to it when I'm done eating. Okay. I won't be that long, but just give me 30 minutes. That's all I need. And there are days where I've been really a lot better about this. I just have a hard cutoff now. It's all right, 5:45. If I didn't get to it, it's not going to get done until tomorrow morning. So 5:45, that's it. I get ready. 6 o'clock, 6 to 7:30, I work out, and then just eat dinner, and then go to bed, and just eat and repeat every single day.
Yeah. It's funny. I remember when I was in high school, when, I think it was junior year, we had to go with somebody to work for a week, and something we thought we might like to do. And I went in with a family friend who was a financial advisor, and this was in 2001, wow. I think. And it was during a minor crash. I guess it depends. Minor depends on how much money you're losing. But it wasn't quite, 2008. But I remember the guy I was with, explaining that this typically isn't what it was like. And how much he was trying to literally, talk some of his clients just back
Hmm.
to a state of like
Hmm.
normalcy. Have you noticed a lot of that? Is there a lot of stress involved with dealing with your clients? I know it's more of a corporate thing now, but
It's a more of a corporate thing, but essentially, there's a lot of moving parts when it comes to the clients, and the thing is like, yeah, so the big client could be the person who's going under, but then behind that, there's like how can I say this, like 200, maybe 100 other people who are essentially working within that whole bankruptcy, and it does pull a lot of stress. The thing is that it's pow 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 every single day. It's like one after the other, and the thing is, like, I always tell people, like, they want this stuff done yesterday. Like, today is too late,
yeah.
and if something's not getting done, there's just like this large amount of stress where they're trying to reach out to me. They're like, I'm calling your office phone, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And especially with coronavirus, it's just a lot of uncertainty. So they're like, is this guy in the office? Is he just ignoring me? Let me just shoot him an email with an exclamation point on it. Like, what's going on? I'm like, sorry, I'm not in the office. Here, call my cell phone. And now it's like my cell phone just goes off almost like every 5 minutes during the weekday, with people just trying to get stuff done. So it's just a lot of sense of urgency and a lot of stress. And there's just really no, right now, this is the normal, that we have to adjust to. This is not the normal that was before. This is the normal now, which is fast paced.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think when, at least I find myself in those situations where it's constantly at a fast pace, and, there seems to be no relief
No.
really from it. You have to build that
Yeah.
in almost on your own, because if not, I remember same thing. I'm in kind of a new line of work
Mm-hmm.
right now, and you'll start to feel like you're on a treadmill that's just
Yeah.
speeding up, and it's
And you're
not
like, you're
slowing
just trying
down,
to keep
because
up.
because I mean, there's like everybody wants their stuff
Mm-hmm.
yesterday, and I think if you try to keep up with that forever without kind of giving yourself
Yeah.
a break, or just saying like, I'm gonna have to get to this after lunch or tomorrow, you'll
Yeah.
burn out. I mean, it's have you, I guess, had any experience with that in your line of work?
Yeah, so it actually happened to me like the first 2 weeks of it. When coronavirus hit, everything just started popping off, and again, I was the only person working on my tasks, and it was in and out, in and out. I remember I wasn't myself for maybe 2-3 weeks alone because I was still trying to adjust, and then I was just happy I was done at the end of the day, and it got to a point where I was just like, I just eat and I just go to sleep because I was just so tired. But now being able to set those boundaries, it's helped out immensely. It just helps me prioritize, and essentially it's like, hey, if this didn't get done today, it's gonna get done tomorrow. Don't worry, I'll take a look at it. I know it came in kind of late, but I'm sorry. Like, it's just how it has to be.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, I mean, essentially, I know you from the gym, and I know fitness has been a big
Yeah,
part of your life for quite a while now. Has that been helpful? I mean, now that you have some stuff at the house that you can use and exercise, is that,
immensely,
uh,
immensely.
yeah,
Like, it got to a point where I'm like, the barbell is like the greatest listener because there I can just turn off. It's like if I'm angry, I'm slapping that thing around. If I'm happy, I'm still throwing that thing around, but like kindly. I don't know how to put it, but
yeah,
it's like once I just like put on the music and I start lifting and I start working out, it's like that just goes away. I'm just thinking of like, all right, how much weight am I going to put in the bar? How am I going to attack this workout? Like, just takes my mind off it, and it just does wonders, honestly.
yeah. I mean, I've always looked at working out, or, some sort of structured exercise program as a form of
Mm-hmm.
meditation, because when you're in the middle of that, you don't really have the ability to worry about other things. You're too
Yeah,
focused on the task at hand. And it's nice because it can shut all that other stuff off, at least
at
for a
least for a
little
little
while.
while, and it just for me, it's like, yeah, for meditation, it's just a de-stress for the day. Just like cool down the jets, and I don't know, I love it. That's just me. I love it.
Yeah, yeah. I talk a lot, or I talk about that a lot on these videos in general. It's just how important it is to have something like that where you can walk away from everything else and just kind of clear your mind a little bit. And even if it's not necessarily like CrossFit kind of
Hmm.
stuff that we enjoy, like if you enjoy like yoga or art
Yeah.
or anything you find that you can just like focus on your energy on something else. Because I think day to day, a lot of people get just hyper focused on, if it's high stress situations at work or whatever. If you don't have anything to kind of declutter your mind after a day of that, it'll really start to build up
It
on
builds
you.
up, and like it gets to a point for me. Like earlier, I couldn't sleep. It's like, what do I have to do tomorrow? Like, did I finish this? Did I do that? It's like, all right, doing the weights just puts that in the back of my head, and I'll worry about it the next morning.
Yeah, it helps a lot. So give me a little bit of background, because to be honest, I mean, we know each other, but I don't know a lot about like where you grew up, where you went to high school, college. Give me some of that background.
So my background, where I grew up, essentially for a small part of my life, the first 8 years, that was in Mexico City. I was born and raised in Mexico City. I lived there for 8 years, and then I moved to the U.S. when I was like 8.5 or so, and I've been here ever since. So, as for like elementary school, middle school, it's just one ride. It's really you learning how to do things. You're really not independent. You still haven't grown up too much. And then once you get to high school, I went to Kennett High School. So it's pretty close to me here in Kennett Square. That's where I went to high school. And then that's where starting to turn into adult started to take effect to me. I got there freshman year. It's like I'm still learning the ropes. I got all my biology classes. Everything was pretty fine. And then junior year, that's when the stress started to build up, like, okay, college is a year away. Have you taken your SATs? Like, I was talking to my parents and they said, when I was a kid, they didn't ask if you're going to college. It was like, okay, what are you going to do after high school? Right. It's like, oh, I'm going to go work here or I'm going to go to college. Awesome. Now it's like, they don't even ask, what are you going to do? It's like, hey, which college are you going to? So right. I took the SATs and all that. And then my senior year, that was like the big transition year. You have like the senioritis where you really don't want to do anything. It's like I got my acceptance letter to Penn State. I'm ready to go. Screw this, I'm done. But the thing is, I had AP classes, and it just got to a point where AP classes were just like a big struggle, and I was essentially tapped out at that moment, which is something I wish I didn't do, because I was tapping out, so I let distractions come into play. And then it's like, I don't want to say a distraction, but I got a girlfriend like senior year, and that was just a huge distraction, so it's like I wasn't really focusing on what I should have and prepare for that big move into Penn State the next year in 2013. And surely enough, like I got to Penn State, and then there I started out as an engineering major. That didn't work out too much, and I think it's just due in part because of me just not being in the moment, being able to know like, hey, you're going to be doing this, you're going to be doing that. So eventually I switched over to an economics major, and I just had to deal with all the stresses that came with college, essentially from scratch, just like restarting. And I wanted to finish in time, so I essentially almost piled on an economics major in 2 years instead of making that 4. So,
oh my gosh,
that was just I believe a stupid move in my part. I came out. Thankfully, I finished on time, but it was just a lot of work, a lot of stress, and there were like a lot of sleepless nights that I had to deal with.
That's impressive. Yeah, that's a
heavy load of classes
for sure. So let me ask you this: were your parents expecting this of you, or were you kind of self-motivated to get all this stuff done? I mean, because you're a driven dude. Does that come from your upbringing, or is that just kind of internally motivated?
I think it's a mixture of both. My dad, I remember I came back for the holiday my sophomore year when I made the switch to economics, and my dad goes, "Are you done yet?" I was like, "I'm not done yet, Dad." He's like, "All right, well, time's ticking, man." So I was like, "Okay, Dad, hang on."
Yeah.
So I felt a little bit of pressure to say, it's like, okay, I know like my dads are really helping me out financially right now with this. And I just had this pressure in the back of my head where I said, if I don't turn things around right now, if I don't start like really focusing, if I don't put in that effort, if I don't like just find a way to get done, it's like I don't want to look bad, but I also want to be able to get done in time as well, So I said, you know what? Nothing's impossible. So I started looking at the classes that I had. I saw my strengths, I saw my weaknesses, and I said, all right, these classes are going to be structured around my strength. So, all right, so I love banking, I love pricing theory, I love monetary theory. You know what? Pile this on. And I just said, all right, I'm going to do this amount of classes fall, spring, and then just be done with it. And like, I came out pretty well. My GPA, it was decent. It wasn't like the best that it could have been, but it was just me being just being able to cope with the stresses, and then also just like the pressure from the back of my parents saying, all right, Jose, like pick up the slack. And I was like, that's what I did. And I just found like different ways in which I could excel. And I saw that if I went in a summer, I went to the London School of Economics when I was a junior. So after that, in that summer, I just flew by myself over to London because they had the opportunity where Penn State said, hey, you're going to be taking these graduate level classes. If you take them, we can actually knock out 2 of your major requirements. So that's going to save you some time. So I just said, you know what? I did 2 classes. I did the best I could, showed them my transcript, and they said, all right, you're good with this one and this one. And that just essentially shaved time off of me having to do an extra semester or an extra year just because of those.
That's awesome. We were talking a little bit before the podcast. You mentioned that you ran into some things like mental health wise through your college years. You want to give us an idea of what that was? If this is related
this is related to it. I feel like this is something that probably happens to a good chunk of college students, not everybody, but like I said, when I was a senior in high school, I had a girlfriend, and that girlfriend, she went into Penn State as I did as well. But it was like a weird summer, and then we got to the point where the relationship ended, and I wasn't in a good spot, you know, mentally or emotionally. And what sucked was that she was in the same math class that I was in. So I would have to see her every single day in the fall semester afterwards, right? And she's there with the new, like, she looks different. I'm like, what's going on? It's like, I don't know. And it's like I wasn't right. Like something just happened in my head where I just, you know, it was just like she was like the only connection I had in Penn State. And now I had other friends at Penn State, but never really talked to them in high school. So they weren't really at that point. And it got to a point where I just felt like I was alone. Like my parents aren't here. I'm not going to see them every day. They're working. I have a roommate that I have no idea what he's doing. I'm just there by myself trying to make new friends. And it just put me in a bad spot mentally where it was like, what am I going to do? Like, I wasn't motivated those first 2 years, which is what caused the switch into economics. Why I essentially, like, the classes, I just try to skate by. I wasn't working out at that point. I had really no coping mechanism. So it was just really a lot of pressure that I was just trying to deal with, and just being able to, like, all right, focus on your class. It's like, I know she's there. Just like focus on the math here. Just do your thing. And it just became like, I wouldn't say a struggle, like, just for me, especially. I don't know what happened. I wasn't in a good spot. I was just alone. I didn't know what to do.
Yeah. I'll tell you, I really think that this happens to, I'm sure a lot of girls, but a lot of guys too. I dealt with a very similar situation. And I think it's when there's already, you're looking at like a huge lifestyle change. You know, going from high school to college, or graduating high school and going into the workforce, or whatever you're doing. But and it happens a lot when you're in a relationship that ends in that kind of way, it can be a huge catalyst for depression and anxiety. Like, I dealt with it, and I think at that age, you're also not really aware of what's going on.
True.
Like, and you don't necessarily always make the best decisions for your own mental health in order to make things better, because you've never really experienced that kind of thing. I think I think it can also lead to a lot of, just with the timing and college and stuff like that. Not that this is what happened to you, but it can also lend itself to like substance abuse issues, because if you go out and party and get hammered, and you temporarily aren't concerned about it, like ends up being a coping mechanism. But it's I think it's a very common, and I don't want to say dangerous, but it can lead down a pretty nasty path.
Yeah.
If you're not sure of like what you're looking at. So I mean, I have cousins and family members that are that age where they're fine, but I'd always try to look and see like if a relationship does end or if they're going through a big lifestyle change. Like I try to look for red flags because it can be a tough road to navigate if you've never been there before.
Yeah, it was a tough road, and I just remember that, like for me, like some people turn to coping mechanisms. It could be substance abuse. Some people start drinking heavily. I know it's college; it's really easy. Alcohol is quite readily accessible to anybody. I mean, I've been to parties and you see drugs and all that stuff being passed around. So it's like it starts to get a little bit of the tempting side. But for me, like my coping mechanism, it didn't turn into substance abuse, but it was just eating and eating and eating and eating and eating. I was stressed and I would eat. I was sad and I would eat. I would have a snack. I did not know what to do. Oh, let me go get something to eat. Just like take my mind off it. It just became something that was just part of me at that point. And I mean, I had friends who probably turned to the same method, but then there were others that I know turned to substance abuse, and they're completely different people now. Like they graduated college, they finished, they turned their lives around, but for some people, it's just it's still a difficult struggle afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, the way that stress manifests, I'm sure is different for everybody.
Yeah.
Whether it's food or a substance abuse issue or sex or whatever. It's people. I think you're just going to go towards where you can find some sort of comfort, because it can be so unbearable, like that feeling that you're just like, what will make me feel better right now? Like, I don't care. And you go to what works for you. And I mean, I think you're right. I think a lot of people end up steering the ship, back to the right path eventually. But it's a confusing time whenever you're going through that sort of stress and trying to figure out the best way to manage it. Because like I said earlier, a lot of times you don't even know that you're feeling that. It's just kind of, it's new and it seems like it's normal, but it is tough. So now that, you find yourself in like another high stress situation or job, a lot of change, all that kind of stuff going on, I guess you kind of can look back and see what to do, what not to do based off of those past experiences.
Yeah, exactly. Like I knew going into this new job was going to be stressful. So I just remember before I even started out, I just had flashbacks to when I was in Penn State, when I was a freshman, sophomore, even a junior, where I said, I cannot go down that path again. I cannot shut down. I cannot be motivated. I need to be able to, all right, I have the task at hand. Let's attack it, play my strengths, and go from there. Like now you have a new coping mechanism. It's not food, it's working out. And for me, just working, like we talked before, working out is like a meditation, just helps you forget about that. And it isn't unhealthy. For me, it's just a healthy coping mechanism. Like I just get to sweat it out. I get the adrenaline pumping, and like you start looking good, you start feeling good. And you just go with that feeling into the next day. You're like, all right, I know what my reward is going to be at the end of the day if I finish all my stuff here. So let me just drive myself, get this stuff done, not go back down that path of just shutting down, and just like being in the moment, being there, smiling, cracking jokes, and then just working out and having that coping mechanism in the end really helped out. So like Penn State.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I think that's hugely important. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. So when did you find exercise as like a coping mechanism?
The first time that I actually walked into the gym and I met you.
Oh,
not
no
even kidding. I got done in the summer of Penn State. I was done. I think my senior year, like I started just getting a little bit better about certain things, but it got to a point where I was like, all right, how much do I weigh? Let me get on the scale. And I just saw the weight and I was like, oh, wow. It was like, I think I was like around maybe like 250, 260, somewhere around that, just because of all the stuff that I ate. And it was like a big turning point because my dad and we had a conversation and we were going through pictures of a family vacation that we had in Mexico City. And I just see myself like just being huge, and I wasn't even smiling. So I said, I need a brand new coping mechanism. I need to do something. And my dad, he's always been a big runner. He's worked out. He played a lot of basketball. He's been very athletic his whole life. He played golf. I played golf also, but I just didn't have time in Penn State, essentially. That could have been another coping mechanism. And we drove past the wheelhouse, and my dad said, "Why don't you try that?" I was like, he goes, "What?" I'm like, "What? Try CrossFit." I was like, "Oh, all right." So I sent the invitation the next day to you, and there I was. So that day one, when I met you, and I remember we were in class, and I think there were like 2 other people there. You kicked my ass. You definitely did. I was never an assault bike. I never had to do lunges with a freaking barbell over my head. Now it's like nothing for me. That was like my first step into like just being able to find that healthy coping mechanism that I was looking for throughout of college. It's like, you know what? I have time. I need to make time. So that was like the very first time.
That is really funny. I didn't know that. I didn't know that was your first experience.
Yeah, that was my first experience with it.
That is cool. Yeah, and I mean, kudos to you, because I know that's not the easiest situation to just jump into from, not exercising to doing all the craziness that I must have thrown at you right off the bat.
There's so much craziness. Like the first 2 weeks, I just remember that. But I was like, after the first couple of weeks, everything hurt really badly, and I was like, that was fun actually. You know what? Let me do it again, and it just becomes a habit. It's like it just becomes a habit, and now it's just a big part of my life.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think, again, those things that are difficult, but you might enjoy, they can benefit you in so many different ways, not just physically, but just the mental health benefits you get from it can really make a big difference.
It did. The mental benefits for me was just the exercise helped me clear my brain. Helped me prioritize. Just like I had like this cloud, and after working out, doing all those crazy workouts, in the end, like my mind has never been clear. Like I was able to think about it like, hey, you're done college. All right, time to make the next move, but keep doing this. Don't forget about this.
Right.
So that's what I did.
Yeah. I mean, and even just if you can get some moments of clarity through that kind of thing, it's just hugely beneficial. That's really
beneficial,
cool.
And it's also the feeling that you get after it. It's like you're done a workout. There's some other workouts where you're like, okay, I'm glad that's over, and then there are the ones where you drop the barbell and you're like laying down on the floor for 5 minutes, and then everybody's telling you to like get up and clean your stuff. I'm like, just give me like 10 more minutes, man. But
yeah, I know. I
can't breathe yet, but like I'm feeling great, And it's like, all right, what's next? Let's do the next thing. That's what it was.
Yep. Yeah. Once you get the endorphins and dopamine running through you, it is an unbeatable feeling.
It's an unbeatable feeling. Like I said, I wish if I had that during Penn State, it might have been a whole different story early on. But I'm kind of thankful for all that stuff that happened to me at Penn State, because it was like a learning experience. And then just walking into the gym and getting that new feeling, I'm also really thankful for that. So it was just like a positive and negative. I just put them together and we just move forward from there.
Yep. Yeah, I love it. So, I mean, that kind of lends itself to this question, but what advice do you have for anybody who might be going through a big lifestyle change? Like what advice would you give to them if it's a big shift from high school to college, or college, into the workforce? Anything you would say to look out for, or to try to add to their regimen?
For anybody who's making that jump into from high school into college, I mean, a lot of people go through that. It's a pretty big change, and it's a very normal change. But when you go into that, just know that whatever you knew before, it's like, okay, you had your family life, you get to go home. There was a freshly cooked meal for you when you were getting ready, doing your homework. College is going to be a different experience. It's a really big jump. It's nothing like high school, but you need to be able to, what I wasn't able to is just essentially prioritize. It's like there are the times where just hammer down, study. If you have a coping mechanism, make sure it's healthy. It could be a walk to clear your brain. It could be going to the gym. It could be doing extracurricular activities like being part of the band. Maybe you play an instrument, keep doing that. If you have a hobby, keep doing that. So it helps you de-stress during the day. In college, you're going to have plenty of free time. So it's up to you how you're going to break that up into studying or doing your schoolwork, and then just being able to de-stress. That's very big. There's a big social aspect, and you have to take advantage of it. And then for those who are just making the jump into being into college, into the workforce, it could be white collar, blue collar. It really doesn't matter. It's another big jump that you need to be able to manage. And if you had any of those healthy coping mechanisms when you were in college, make sure that they carry over into into that work lifestyle. For me, I didn't have those healthy coping mechanisms, so I had to find something in between. And for me, it was going to the gym. So just have something that's going to help you, de-stress, take your mind off of things, and then just attack the next day how you normally would. That would be my advice.
I love it, dude. Yeah, I think that's great advice. Well, I'm gonna leave it there, dude. I think that's a perfect place to end it. And I appreciate you for being our first podcast guest
No problem.
ever on Project Unbroken. Help me work through the kinks a little bit, and I'd love to have you back on again.
I would love to be back, man.
With perfect audio. But thanks for bearing.
No
with
problem,
me
Matt. Thank you for having me.
Hold on one second. I'll close this off real quick. All right, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Special thanks to Jose for being our very first podcast guest. I am greatly appreciative of you coming on and having that conversation with me. I really enjoyed it. Thanks to everyone for your continued support, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. Bye.